What's up, guys? So back with you as always. It is Tuesday, March 25th. We're going to talk a little bit of college basketball. We have a couple of these smaller tournaments in action. The NIT back in action. I do have one play in the CBI, which will be the only play that I've had so far in the CBI. May wind up being the only one. Who knows? NHL, decent sized card there, or decent sized slate, but I do have two NHL plays and I got one NBA play. So we're going to get right into it, man. I'm going to try to finish this quickly as I can, because I got about a half hour or so is what I'm going to give myself here. Let's try to get this done. Yesterday, 1-0, baby. Easy win on the Detroit Red Wings. They had a 2-1 lead early in the game. They had 2 goals on 4 shots on net and still had the lead. I'm like, all right, I'll take it. And then they scored 3 more in the third period and won 5-1. No empty nets. I mean, the game wound up being statistically close. Obviously, I'll take the win. I mean, they were a decent-sized underdog. The line, I think, moved in their direction, so everything worked out well with that one. We got to get back on track, man, because everything has just been kind of falling apart here, including hockey. College basketball mostly has been terrible, but we're sitting at slightly below the break-even point of the year right now after a terrible March. We got to finish this March off strong, man. So we'll get into it, and let's try to do it. I don't know if there was anything else I was going to say about. I will say Mrazek was not in net last night. They used Lion or Leon. I don't know how you pronounce his name. But I was a little bit worried about that because I really thought it was going to be Mrazek in net. And he was the only goalie that had won any games in Detroit's last couple of weeks of play. But still didn't even matter. They still won the game. So let's move on. And it was against I think Vejmelka was actually in net again for Utah. It's like they're just running this guy into the ground. It's really crazy, man. He's played every game for over a month. Anyway, let's talk about basketball. We got the NIT. We can talk about that first, I guess. We're back in action with the NIT. These teams have had a couple of days off now. Chattanooga is going to Bradley. Bradley down from 5 to 3.5 as the home favorite. Remember, these teams in the NIT were in the quarterfinals now. So until we get to the semifinals, the higher seed or the better seed is hosting the games. So we have 8 teams left. Once we get to the semifinals, I believe they will be in Madison Square Garden. So neutral location from then on out. 53% of the cash on Bradley. 50% of the tickets are evenly split. So it looks like some of the money's coming in on Bradley, even though the line initially moved down. I don't know what was up with that line move. I might pay a little bit more attention to the cash in this particular instance, but I've been saying Bradley's kind of overrated all year. I mean, they're pretty high up in KenPom's luck index in the 20s or so. Chattanooga's in the top 100 of their luck index as well. I thought Chattanooga was a fast-paced team, but they're actually kind of a slower-paced team. So you got a situation where both of these teams are actually a little bit overrated. They're both slower pace, so it's kind of tough to gauge who we want here. I mean, Chattanooga had a nice win over Dayton, and now they're playing their first game in the tournament that's outside of the state of Tennessee, as they played at Middle Tennessee, then at home against Dayton. So this is the first time they're going out on the road. They're having to go to Illinois, Peoria, I believe, which isn't that far, but still they're having to leave home, which is maybe a little bit more difficult. Bradley just won at George Mason, which was a bigger upset win. So they are coming off an upset win. A lot of times you do want to look to maybe fade teams that have pulled off an upset win, but I don't know that letdowns are necessarily a thing. It's just that fatigue might become a thing in a tournament like this. Like once you get to these quarterfinals, I think everybody is motivated at this point. Everybody at this point is trying to win the NIT. So I don't really think the letdown situation is really a thing. It's just maybe a hangover type of thing where a team just doesn't have that much left. I don't really know that that's going to be the case though with Bradley here. They're coming back home. They won the first home game they had against North Alabama somewhat easily, although I think Chattanooga is better than North Alabama, as the line is telling you, but not by that much. Probably slightly into Bradley, just because Chattanooga's going out on the road basically for the first time, leaving the state of Tennessee for the first time in this tournament. And then North Texas is at Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State up from 1-1 with juice, 74% of tickets, 83% of the cash. So money coming in on Oklahoma State. Don't know that I necessarily agree with that. Oklahoma State is coming off a big upset win at SMU. They were 8.5, 9-point underdogs in that game, and they pulled off the upset. Probably a kind of disappointed SMU team, even though they had won one game in this tournament. pretty big win for Oklahoma State, and now they have to come back home and face North Texas. And this is going to be a major contrast of styles. North Texas coming off a win at home where they just barely got by Arkansas State, who is also a contrasting style. Arkansas State likes to play fast. Oklahoma State likes to play fast. North Texas likes to try to slow the game way down. The odds makers are telling you North Texas is actually the better of these two teams, as Oklahoma State's not getting the full home court advantage here. I do agree with all that. It's just that Oklahoma State being at home, they may still be able to successfully speed this game up, and that would throw North Texas out of the style that they want to play. The total has actually gone up as well. So money being on the over end on Oklahoma State kind of indicates to me that those things are correlated. Like if you like Oklahoma State, you probably like this to go over. If you like North Texas, you probably like it to go under, just because it's the huge pacing contrast here. And it looks like the money is in agreement on all that as far as Oklahoma State and the over is concerned. So I wouldn't really have that much of a reason to disagree with it. I mean, again, like I said, I don't think you have a letdown spot if you're Oklahoma State in a situation like this. I just think that maybe you're a little bit gassed after pulling off that big upset. North Texas is having to go out on the road, though, after playing at home. So we'll see how it goes. I'm not going to play those. I am going to play this Illinois State Incarnate Word game. I'm going to lay it with Illinois State minus 5.5. Incarnate Word has played the last 2 days. They beat Manhattan in kind of a toss-up game, and they pulled off kind of a mild upset against Jacksonville. But this is in the CBI now, so we're switching over to the CBI. All these games are at Daytona Beach. So Incarnate Word actually had to beat Jacksonville kind of close to their home city almost, like not that far away from their home city. Pretty big upset win there for Incarnate Word, but I don't think Incarnate Word is as good as they've looked in this tournament. They're not as good as Jacksonville, and in this game, they did shoot rather well, 54% from the field, 40% from three. Kind of looking at some outliers there. Jacksonville lost the turnover battle pretty badly. Jacksonville did win the rebounding battle. This Incarnate Word team, I don't know they're necessarily that good of a rebounding team, man. They were able to pull off the upset. I think their shooting percentages were a bit of an outlier. I think it'll regress a little bit, especially now that Incarnate Word is playing a third game in 3 days now. So with no time off, whereas Illinois State, they only have one win. I made a mistake yesterday. I thought Incarnate Word had beaten Illinois State. Hopefully that's not a precursor of what's to come here, but I was wrong about that. Incarnate Word had actually beaten Manhattan in the first game of the tournament. Illinois State beat Presbyterian. Not very impressively, only beating them by 8, although they did actually cover. Illinois State did shoot really well, 60%, so that is also due to regress, but I just don't think that, and they did win the rebounding battle. Lost the turnover battle, though, but still won the game. So that kind of tells you something, too. If a team loses the turnover battle and they still win by 8, that means they definitely outplayed their opponent in other, in more predictable categories. Illinois State has had a day off. They didn't play yesterday, so they're the more rested team. They've only played one game in the last 2 days in this tournament, had yesterday off. Incarnate Word playing a third straight game, and there's no real advantage now to Incarnate Word having already played in this arena because Illinois State also played there 2 days ago. So both of these teams are now used to this arena because they already played a game in this arena. So I think the advantage is going to flip to Illinois State here, man, because they have the rest edge. I think they're the better team. I think they should be able to win the rebounding battle here. And Incarnate Word, even though both teams kind of had outlier shooting percentages, I trust Illinois State to win this game. They're the better team, but it's not one of these situations where, this is an offense versus a defense or something like that. No, Ken Baum has Illinois State as the better offensive team and the better defensive team. Both teams are bad defensively. Illinois State has a significant offensive edge. This line is up from 6-6 with juice already, by the way, so I apologize if you can't get the better number. There were 5.5s out there. You might still be able to find it. 82% of tickets, only 73% of cash on Illinois State. Worries me a little bit that the cash percentage is less so on them, although it's moving all over the place right now, and the line did move up, and I think that is a legitimate move if people see this the way that I do, with the rest advantage there. Illinois State, as I was saying, better on both offense and defense over what Incarnate Word is. And Incarnate Word, both teams are actually really bad defensively. Illinois State's a little bit better defensively, but they're also significantly better offensively. So I think you're going to see Incarnate Word's shooting regress here, even though Illinois State doesn't defend well. And Illinois State should probably stay, maybe not regress or progress very much from what they did in their last game. I think they're going to kind of just like stay the course. So I like Illinois State, and there's no pacing mismatch here. Both teams play on the rather slow side, so that doesn't really matter. I think this is where it ends for Incarnate Word. It's been a nice story, but they're not as good a team, and they're actually from a weaker conference too in the Southland. Missouri Valley is a little bit more competitive. And then we got Florida Gulf Coast, the only team left from Florida representing this tournament. Cleveland State, though, up from 1.5 to 3.5, so the line has moved up again. This looks very similar to yesterday, where the line moved up and up and up on Cleveland State, but the cash seemed to be coming in on Queens, and it didn't work out for those Queens bettors. Cleveland State won and covered. Florida Gulf Coast has 52% of the cash on them, 56% of the tickets on Cleveland State. And this is a case where I actually think both teams, again, are a little bit overrated. I've been telling you, Cleveland State is definitely overrated. I think they are the more overrated team here. So, again, I might not agree with this line move, man. I think something's got to give at some point here. I thought Cleveland State might be the more disappointed team after they kind of thought they might be able to win the Horizon. They were one of the top teams in the Horizon. They lost to Youngstown. But they played well yesterday, beat Queens. Now they got Florida Gulf Coast, who's in the same conference as Queens, in the A-Sun, but I think Florida Gulf Coast is actually the better of those two teams, even though I think Queens might have beaten them in the A-Sun tournament or something. I forget who beat whom. Queens got further in the tournament, but I believe. But even so, I think that's, there's not a whole lot else to say about this, but I would probably look to take the points with Florida Gulf Coast if I was going to play that game, which I am not. Let's move over to NHL here. I got two plays. I'm going to try to not talk about any of these games that have like larger spreads, just time's sake. I am going to play one favorite here. I'm going to lay it with Ottawa, minus 142. Money line. I think this is a bad spot for Buffalo, and you're getting the better team, obviously, with Ottawa, although laying a bit of a price on the road, but I think it's justified. I mean, Buffalo, they're a bad team. They really don't have a whole lot else to play for here. I mean, yeah, sure, maybe they want to try to spoil the party for Ottawa, but look at what Buffalo's done, man. They just were on the road for over a week, and they finished the road trip by beating Winnipeg at Winnipeg, which is almost impossible to do. Winnipeg is almost unbeatable at home, but if you look at what Winnipeg was doing, look at the spot for Winnipeg. Winnipeg was returning home, although only for a 3-game road trip, but still, they had beaten Edmonton in their previous game, and they had Washington up next. That was a return home spot and a sandwich spot for Winnipeg, so that was a bad spot. So even though, yeah, it is pretty impressive that Buffalo beat them, they caught Winnipeg at just the right time, and now it's Buffalo that's returning home, and they are nowhere near as good a team as Winnipeg, and riding the high off of that big win, coming home with one day off. And I always say when you return home, especially if you've been away for more than a week and you've been out into elevation, you've been out to the prairie provinces here, and now you're returning back home to Buffalo, you got stuff to do at home, man, especially when you're the bottom team in the Eastern Conference and you know you're not going anywhere. You might not have that much of a reason to show up in a spot like this. You tend to get a bit distracted by returning back to home, returning to family life. And meanwhile, Ottawa, even though they're sitting pretty decently right now in the wild card spot, they're highly likely to get a wild card now. I don't know that they can really take their foot off the gas at this point. So they do have more to play for than Buffalo because they are in a wild card spot. They are still trying to play for that wild card spot. And Ottawa, all they just did was play at New Jersey, so they're staying in this, basically in the New York, New Jersey area. They won that game, which was a big win, an upset win on the road, I believe. But they've had 2 days off now, so you're looking at the more rested and less traveled team for Ottawa right now, as they've kind of just stayed like in this area. So I don't think they're really in a letdown spot. And again, they're still playing for that like playoff positioning. So I like Ottawa here. I'm going to lay the price with Ottawa. And that's the whole deal there. Give me Ottawa in that one. And then we got, what else? I want to kind of get this done quickly. I mean, I kind of leaned to Tampa Bay, even though I said I wasn't going to talk about this. Pittsburgh just pulled off the big win over Columbus, or I was on Pittsburgh in that game. Bad spot for Columbus. Went out on the road, and I believe they took Florida to overtime. Yeah, they took them to a shootout. So they're coming off taking the defending champs to a shootout and now having to turn around and play again against Tampa with like maybe 1 day off or so. I think it might be 1 day off, whatever it is. Looks like a bad spot to me for Pittsburgh, man. And Tampa, they're coming off a couple of losses. They are returning home from a road trip, though, so that's the one issue that I would have with Tampa is they're returning from going out to Dallas, into elevation, into Utah, and then all the way out to Vegas. and now they're returning home, though they might be in a bounce-back spot after losing the last 2 games. But because they're returning home, I don't really want to do it. But Pittsburgh looks like they're not in a good spot. Tampa's up from -250 and -255, but very public, 80% of tickets and only 59% of the cash. So I don't want to have anything to do with that one, just because Tampa's in the return home spot. Although my initial lean was towards the Tampa side. Let's see. Montreal, St. Louis. I don't know if there's a whole lot else to say about this. I mean, Montreal just had a close game against Colorado. That went into a shootout. Big game for them, although now they turn around and go out on the road, so I could see them being in a hangover spot after that big game against Colorado, but they've had 2 days off now, and they're starting a road trip. So, on the other hand, it does look like a focus spot for Montreal. St. Louis, they're just kind of on a roll right now, getting some easy wins here. They just beat Nashville. Nothing to really see there, just staying at home. So, they're just kind of in a momentum spot there, I would say, for St. Louis. So, I don't love either team there. St. Louis down from -155 to -145. 78% of tickets, 93% of the cash coming in on Montreal. Money coming in on Montreal. Both teams are fighting for wild card spots. So I think Montreal was more the desperate team here, and they're an underdog. Looks like Montreal getting some of the money there. Not totally sure I would agree with it, though, because they are still coming off that tough game against Colorado. Vegas is at Minnesota. Vegas is just rolling right now. I mean, they just got a big win over Tampa Bay. Now they're going out on the road to face Minnesota. And usually when you start a road trip, as I always say, you tend to be focused to start the road trip, especially if they're playing a decent team like Minnesota. But they are coming off a big win over Tampa. But still, you start a road trip, you tend to want to get the road trip off on the right foot. Minnesota's coming off an ugly loss to Dallas, though. I mean, you can't blame them for losing to Dallas, but it wasn't a shutout. A lot of times in hockey, you want to look to play that team that just got shut out to bounce back from it. But I'm not going to do it here because they're turning around and coming back home with no days off. So they're playing a back-to-back, and they're actually playing a third game in 4 days. So I don't really love it for Minnesota there. So Vegas is up from -170 to -184. Line has moved up on Vegas, but they're public with 76% of tickets. It looks like 78% of the cash coming in on Minnesota. So the cash coming in on Minnesota, I still don't want to do it because they're in the back-to-back. Washington at Winnipeg. Washington just beat Florida by 6-3. Huge win for Washington. So they're having to play multiple big games in a row. They've had 2 days off, and they are starting a road trip. 2 days off could actually halt their momentum a little bit, but then again, it could give them a little bit of a rest period after that big win over Florida. So I could see that hurting their momentum. I could see them being in kind of a hangover spot or letdown spot after Florida. But you could also see them being focused to play Winnipeg and starting a road trip. Winnipeg is very good at home, though, and they're coming off an embarrassing loss against Buffalo. And you have an embarrassing loss in a return home spot like that, you tend to be ultra focused in the next game. So I think we got a better spot for Winnipeg here, a more focused spot. They are really good at home. So I would lean to Winnipeg. Winnipeg up from -135 to -143. 79% of tickets, 93% of the cash coming in on Washington. So some of the money coming in on Washington. By the way, a lot of my leans last night seemed to hit correctly as well. So I'm kind of angry about that. But it is what it is. I mean, that at least means my gauge was on all those games last night. I just kind of wish maybe I'd played more games than I did. But I did go 1-0, so at least there's that. The one that I picked was a winner, and it was this Detroit Red Wings team. They're staying in elevation, and now they're playing a third game in 4 days and a back-to-back, an elevation back-to-back with no rest. Third game in 4 days, all in different cities. Very difficult spot for Detroit here. Even though, yeah, they're in desperation mode. They need to try to win because they're almost about to get eliminated from playoff contention. But this is a very difficult spot for them for those reasons. Colorado, though, they're sitting more comfortably, obviously. They're going to get into the playoffs. They're coming off a shootout win over Montreal, and they're returning home from a road trip. They do have a couple of days off. They've been on the road for less than a week, but it was still a road trip all the way to the Eastern Canadian territory there, Eastern Canadian provinces there. So they are returning home from that. So it's kind of a bad spot for both teams, really, in my opinion, with Colorado being the return home spot. So we will see. Colorado does have some of the money coming in, it looks like, up from -260 to -275. Those percentages, I don't think, really indicate anything yet. And then we do have my other play is the Seattle Kraken, even though they let me down the other day, and it was a tough game for them, and I'm going right back to the well because I think Calgary isn't that good, and Calgary's in a bad spot, man. So I'm going right back to the Seattle team that hasn't really done me well this year. Calgary down from -145 to -130. 75% of tickets on them. 74% of the cash coming in on Seattle. So the line is moving down on Calgary. They are public. And the cash is coming in on the Seattle side. So it looks like reverse line movement against a public Calgary team. And yes, I know Seattle's coming off that close game against Edmonton where I had Seattle in that game. Seattle gave up an empty netter and then scored on a power play after that. They should just never have pulled the goalie, and it would have gone into overtime. But now they have 2 days off to kind of break that losing momentum, maybe rest a little bit after that big Edmonton game, because normally after that Edmonton game where they almost beat Edmonton, I would say you want to look to go against them. In this spot, I don't know, because they have 2 days off to try to break that momentum, and they're already in Alberta, and they're just staying in Alberta and going down to Calgary. So I think they're actually in a much better spot here, like travel-wise, as they just get to stay in Alberta, try to recollect themselves a little bit. They have 2 days off, whereas Calgary is a team that's going to be way more travel. When do you usually see the home team being the more travel team? Well, that's because Calgary's returning home from a road trip they've been on for over a week, where they went out to the East, and they won 3 out of 4, beating all the New York, New Jersey teams. Now they're coming home off of that big road trip for Calgary. Yes, I know Calgary's still trying to get into the playoffs. They're, I think, maybe 4 or 5 points out of a wild card spot right now. So, yes, they are a desperate team, but they are laying a price at home. They're not really that good of a team. They do play a lot of close games because they play a lot of lower scoring games, and they got a pretty bad Seattle team here that they're playing. And then after this, they got Dallas, Edmonton, Colorado, much, much bigger games. So it is possible they look ahead to that and that they might be in a little bit of a funk in that return home spot where you tend to get a little bit distracted. So I don't think it's a good spot for Calgary. I will grab Seattle on the money line there. And then we got the Rangers at the Kings. The Kings have won their last 2 games over my Bruins and over Carolina, 7-2 in both those games. So a 14-4 combined score in those 2 wins for LA. I think they got to be in a bit of a letdown after that, man. LA, I mean, they're going to make the playoffs at this point. Yeah, you got the Rangers coming in here, but you're coming up. You got to be riding a real high after that. You're playing a 3rd game in 4 days. You got Colorado up next. I don't know that you're really going to pay that much attention to the Rangers, and the Rangers are fighting to try to even make the playoffs, so they're in more of a desperation spot here. They won their last game against Vancouver to break a loss streak, which was a nice momentum stopper there for them, stopping the bad momentum. And now they start a road trip. And I usually say, starting a road trip, you tend to be focused, especially if you're trying to make the playoffs and you're facing a good Kings team. And this Kings team probably riding too high right now after those wins. So I do like the Rangers in this one. Kings sitting at -165, 79% of tickets, 99% of the cash right now. I don't know that the cash is really going to come in on LA. We will see what happens. But I do lean to the Rangers side there. And then we got a decent-sized NBA slate, but a lot of these games are just ugly, and I just don't even really think many of them are even worth talking about. But I will be on this ugly underdog on the Charlotte Hornets +5. Orlando, they're on a back-to-back. They just beat the Lakers yesterday with LeBron returning. So that was Luka and LeBron playing for the Lakers, and the Lakers lost yet again. This Lakers defense really starting to struggle. So a big win for Orlando, but now they have to turn around and play again right away and go down to Charlotte for one game before they then have Dallas. And I know Dallas is no good anymore, but they still have this sandwiched in between the 2 Luka trade partners there. And then Sacramento, Clippers. Those are all better teams than Charlotte. So it is possible Orlando is in a letdown spot in the back end of a back-to-back and that they overlook the Charlotte team. The Charlotte team, I know they have nothing left to play for, but I think they may have pride to play for here because in the last 2 games, they've given up 141 and 122 points in 2 ugly losses. But they were to Oklahoma City. Don't know if you can really blame them for that. And then Miami, who's not that bad a team, even though Miami's really been slipping recently. But still, I think Charlotte is in the more bounce-back spot there. And Charlotte does have days off. They have at least 1 day off here. Let me see. Where are we at? Yeah, they have 1 day off. They're returning off from a road trip, but it's only a 2-game road trip, and they got annihilated in those games. So I don't think it's really that bad of a return home spot there, and you haven't been away that long. You didn't go that far. I think it's a very bad spot for Orlando in the letdown spot, and it's a bad, no rest spot. So I will take the Hornets there. It looks really ugly. Magic up from 5-5 with juice. Might be able to get a better number than this on the Hornets. 96% of the tickets. Magic definitely going to be public in this game. The public is not going to come in and play the Hornets, and 98% of the cash. So it looks like the cash percentages on the Magic right now, but they are just very, very public. So I think it is a situation where fading the public is going to make sense in that game. Atlanta and Houston. Houston looks like they're kind of in a bad spot to me as they return home, but only from a 2-game road trip, and then had a tough game against Denver, and I believe it was Denver without Jokic, but it's Denver, man. You lose to the Denver Nuggets, and it broke this long win streak. Houston hadn't lost since basically the beginning of March, and now they lost, so I think that's going to hang them over. And Houston, I mean, they're sitting in the 2nd seed right now, but I don't know if they really care that much about the difference between the 2nd and 3rd seed in the Western Conference. They're sitting well. They're going to be in the playoffs. Atlanta is in the play-in games right now. They still have a little bit more to play for that reason, because they could potentially they need to keep like the home play-in game at the very least. And I don't know if there's any potential to move up, but at least they're playing for that. They're kind of in a momentum spot here as they've won some games at home. They didn't have the letdown after the win against Golden State. They still beat Philly, and now they're starting a road trip. So it looks like a more positive spot for Atlanta there. I lean to Atlanta in that one. Houston sitting at an 8-point favorite. It's gone down a little bit, and they have 55% of tickets, only 52% of the cash. I would look to take the points with the Hawks. Houston, very good home team, though, and play good defense. That's what we got going on there. And I don't know if there's a whole lot else to say here, man. I mean, Oklahoma City, Sacramento is an okay game. Oklahoma City's rolling as well. They just beat the Clippers in a close game by 2. That's a pretty big win. Clippers have been playing well again. Now they finish this 2-game road trip going to Sacramento. They do have Memphis up next, which they may pay more attention to LA and Memphis. So maybe it's arguably a little bit of a sandwich spot there. In Sacramento, they're coming off an ugly loss to the Boston Celtics, but it was last night. And Jason Tatum sprained his ankle in that game and left the game. Boston still ran away with it. Boston really starting to play good basketball right now. Sacramento maybe looking to turn it around and try to bounce back from that ugly loss, but they are on a back-to-back, so I don't want to try to do that either. Thunder up from 9 to 10 here. A little bit of movement there. But anyway, I think that's it. That's going to do it for me, man, for now. College basketball, we got a CBI play with Illinois State minus 5.5. Hockey, Seattle plus 115. Ottawa minus 142. NBA, Charlotte Hornets plus 5. You know me with these ugly, ugly dogs, baby. Got one in hockey and one in NBA for you today. Let's try to get some more wins. Let's end the month hot like we did with January and February, man, because I'm sick of losing, sick of this rut, this slump. Let's let it not continue. Tower Gang Tone on Twitter and patreon.com/Tower Gang to support the most offensive podcast out there. And you'll get live bonus content. You get the live after show. You get the live pre-show, and you get to hang out with us in a Telegram. Submit to the mailbag, which we never read. But it's a hilarious show, man. The reviews are coming in on that last episode. People were liking it. Let's keep it all going, man. Let's have a good night, and that's going to do it for now. Peace out.